Hey, Soraya.
Hey, Jeff, what is going on?
Not a whole lot, but do you remember a couple weeks ago when we talked to Shelly of Game Theory?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a really good response from that episode, and people really seemed to dig it. And
Mm-hmm.
our buddy Ronnie had a suggestion that we dig a little bit deeper into game theory and contact somebody else from the band.
Who could that have been?
So Donnette Thayer is our guest today, and Ronnie's going to be joining us again. And we've asked Donnette on the show to talk about this record right here. So Two Steps from the Middle Ages. So she's going to be joining us shortly, and I think you're all going to dig it because she had a lot to add to the band as a guitarist and vocalist. So should be fun. And we've picked some songs to play too from the record.
Yes, we have. Can't wait to have Ronnie Barnett back on. Always a great time when he's on. And cannot wait to sit and speak with Donnette. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff,
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, agruviar.
Let's get groovy.
Here we go. All right, coming up, Ronnie and Donnette.
I think.
I will.
How's my hair today? Is it okay? Is it
It looks great.
good as
You,
it's going to get? Okay. Thank you.
you look like Paul Stanley right now.
I'm just fishing for compliments here.
You got
All right.
our glam going on. Ronnie.
All right, Soraya. So today, as we mentioned in our little intro, we're very excited to have Donnette Thayer on the show. A couple weeks ago, we had Shelly on and we were talking about game theory. And Ronnie suggested that we need to dig a little bit further talking about game theory and talk about another album. And that's this album right here, Two Steps from the Middle Ages, which was, oh, you have a copy too. Hey, yours is signed.
Yeah,
Look
Oh.
at that.
we can get in that later. Yeah. Actually, I don't think Donnette. Oh yeah. There you are.
Ah, look at there.
Yeah.
So do you two know each other personally? Have you met before?
Well, I guess at a show I must have signed your LP.
Yeah. Well, not that you remember any of this, but I guess on the Lolita Nation tour, you played. I'm from Houston, Texas. You played a club called Fitzgerald's.
Oh,
You
yeah.
actually stayed in the back of the club. I knew the booker. I'm the one who got her to book you, and so I remember
That was
having a-
you?
that was me.
I
had a
love
meeting-
Houston. That
I had a
place
meal
in the
with you
back
guys.
was cool.
Yeah. I drove Scott to the college radio station, which I was very nervous about. I was like, oh my God, this is like the best songwriter in the world, and I'm responsible for his life. Yeah, and then the Two Steps tour, you came back to Houston, you played at the punk club called the Axiom. I was there too. And I saw Hex when I first moved to LA at the Palomino.
Whoa. Oh.
And then me and Donnette have known, subsequently known each other online, if you will. But it's nice to finally, this is our real introduction. Let's just say that. So
Yeah. Well, I wanted to come to your party. Shelley suggested that we come to a party a couple of years ago, but I was not able to. But she.
that's right. You were passing through town and
Yeah.
visiting Shelly, and it happened to be the same day. But
Yeah. Yeah,
next time.
Yes. We'll be living nearby there soon. So.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yeah,
One
but-
day I will live in Sacramento as well. So, maybe we'll all move on Shelly's farm.
Yeah. Well.
We'll kick Herman
Fun
out.
there.
Yeah. So,
Perfect.
Well, I had a question, Donnette, to start this whole thing off. And when I was doing a little bit of research, I found out that you were in a couple bands prior to joining Game Theory, one of which was X-Men. I saw that you had
Oh,
a
yeah.
release with Gavin Blair from True West. And then
Yeah.
then The Veil, you had a record that you put out with that band. And I noticed that, oh, look at there.
there you go.
And who's the producer?
Oh my gosh.
Who produced that
Wow,
record?
He's got it all.
Well, Donnette can answer that.
Yeah, so
Well-
the producer of that record was Scott
Scott
Miller.
Miller. Yeah.
So did you meet prior to the recording of The Veil, or is that
Yeah,
where?
we've known each other since a long time before that. And I sang on Blaze of Glory, believe it or not,
Oh, that's right.
a long time ago.
So then, how did you become a full-time member of the band? We learned from
I,
Shelley
I,
that anybody could join as long as they wanted to, but I don't know. I don't believe that.
she over stated that, I think,
I would
but
imagine.
yeah, um, because you didn't even get a chance to audition until Scott vetted you a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about the phone ringing. I'm just gonna let that go. But no, what I did was I auditioned, and also I uh, I had a bass player. So I told Scott that if he wanted a bass player that was my friend, then he had to let me audition too. So
Package deal.
Yeah.
Now,
so
I have one more question about the Veil record here. I see that Brian Marnell is on this record, and I love
yes,
SVT. I think
yeah,
they're vastly underrated. I think calling him Jack Cassidy's band really did him a disservice because it was Brian Marnell's band. Let's face it,
it was
right?
without question. Yeah,
Yeah, I really think he's unsung hero. So I was surprised. I didn't realize he was on this record, so I picked it out again here.
yeah. He came up and practiced with us for a couple of days, and then did that track, and he just blew everybody away with his ability to pull something right out of the air that nobody would have thought of playing.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So then back to the audition, Donnette. So you got an audition with Scott? Was it just him?
It was at the Big Shot Studios with the whole band. And since I'd known Scott, for a long, long time, I knew all the songs. And that was part of the reason that I wanted to audition because, uh, for example, in Northern, there's a slide guitar part that he couldn't play live. And it was pretty easy. So I said, you need another guitar player to play these other parts that you're putting on the recordings. And I know somebody who knows all the songs, and that would be me. So he let me audition along with Guy, and then decided to go ahead and take us both. And that was the last time he ever let a girlfriend in his band. After that, it was his big rule: no more girlfriends in the band.
Smart. That's a smart role. Yeah.
Probably not a bad idea. So
Yeah.
during the audition, were you just auditioning as a guitar player or as a vocalist as
Yes,
well?
guitar. And I had played bass standing in at the Berkeley Square one time too, when they needed a bass player. I played some bass too. And as a matter of fact, I still have that bass, the Game Theory Rickenbacker, which I'm going to give back to Fred. It was originally his, so we've
Oh
arranged
wow.
for me to give that back to him.
So
Not that
is
he
that
ever asked for it.
Yeah.
It's just that it belongs there with him. So
was that bass guitar something that he used like on the early EPs?
I don't know. I don't think so. Nothing that Fred wasn't on. That was just the Fred bass,
Okay.
and so yeah, he wanted it to stay. He wanted Nancy or Nan had given the keyboards to Shelley, and
Right.
then Fred gave me the bass to
Wow.
have that continuity of sound. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that
That's
we learned
amazing.
with
Yeah.
Shelley. So yeah, so that at least for that transitional period, right? There was that time when there was those instruments carried over. We learned from Shelley um, that she used Nan's keyboard, which was
She
super
did.
cool. Yeah. All right, so you joined, and your first album officially was Lolita Nation, right? Although you did sing
Yes.
Blaze of Glory. So, but
We toured and did the video too for Big Shot Chronicles, and I think that the tour really helped that album get a lot of notice. And without the video and the tour, I really wonder if anybody would have heard of it. So,
It's interesting that the same with After Real Nighttime. That band broke up, and then Scott formed the new lineup that toured Real Nighttime, and so the same thing happened with
yes,
Big Shot. Yeah, that's
right,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think that Two Steps from the Middle Ages is the only game theory record that's got the same consecutive lineup as the previous album.
Oh,
other
yeah.
than that,
But I guess besides the first album and the EPs, I guess so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess maybe record release instead of independently released.
I was wondering about that, Donna, and maybe you could shed some light. Do you have any idea why the band members rotated as much as they did? Was Scott
There
difficult to
were
get along
always
with?
good. Yeah, no, there weren't really conflicts. You know, I had plenty of band members rotate in and out of my later bands too, and it went kind of like you get into a band, right? And this is a fancy band, and then you meet a girlfriend, right? Or
Yeah.
a boyfriend, and then they're like they love you because you're in a band, and then that's when they start insisting, well, you're not paying enough attention to me, you've got to quit the band. And you know there was a lot of that, and I think that I think is Dave Gill quit because of uh, a girlfriend issue, and Dan sure quit because she got married and had a kid and wanted to do that. So Fred, I don't remember. I think he moved for a job, but it was never any kind of acrimony.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's why I quit
Yeah.
my first band, got married, and had a kid. So it was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well, I
it
think
makes
that's
sense.
a great reason.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was wondering in the case of game theory if that was the situation, but
Yeah.
so can we talk about the recording of Two Steps? It looks like Mitch flew in from North Carolina to work
He
with
did,
you
and
in
I've got
San
a good
Francisco.
story about that.
Oh,
All
tell
right.
us, please.
We took Mitch and his girlfriend, I think her name was Angie, and oh, she was an amazing musician. Lolita Nation, she was sleeping on the couch, and on the world's easiest job, we wanted to have a crazy piano solo, and Shelley was not around, so Mitch says, "Oh, Angie can play the piano," and he woke her up, and she's like, "What?" You know, he said, "We need you to play the piano," and she staggers into the studio. He says, "Just do something crazy," and then we got that amazing piano part there on World's Easiest Job. One take.
Wow.
Wow.
I
Angie
still
Carlson. Yeah.
I still can't believe that she did such a great job like that. Half asleep.
Right on the spot then, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes
All
you
right.
don't want to overthink things, so sometimes you get the better take like that, especially I guess for a
That's
part
true.
like that.
Yes. Anyway,
And her being her, yeah.
we were going out for dinner with them, and we went to some fancy restaurant in the Haight and ordered, I can't remember what it was, and they served us kale and polenta and something else. I was vegetarian, so you know they got that same thing, and she says, "This is grits. I'm from the South. I know grits. This is not, what is this polenta? This is grits and greens and grits.
Yeah,
So
I
that,
love
polenta and
greens and
kale
grits.
in 1988 was not so common. Yeah, let's face
Yeah, yeah.
it.
so
So
that's the
anyway,
difference between the South and the West Coast, right? From being
yeah, yeah. It was, oh, and it was quite expensive too, the polenta, which she found hilarious.
Because grits are cheap. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, you guys, we could play a song at this point, and I was thinking of starting with one of my tracks, only because it's the lead off track,
Oh, good.
which is "Room for One More, Honey," and we hear your voice quite prominently, Donnette, and it's almost a duet, I would say. I mean, as significant as your vocal is. Is there anything that you could tell us about the song before we start playing it?
I later read that Scott intended that to be an interwoven vocal part. He was a big fan of Pet Sounds, the Beach Boys, and he was trying to emulate that in a kind of a game theory way. And so,
There's a lot of that on this record. I mean, not that I know we're talking about this song, but I mean, there's a lot of duets, if you will, on this album. I mean, he really wrote for your voice. Do you feel like that's true?
yeah, he did. It
Yeah.
was, and when we did the demos, I went back and listened to the demos because they're available, and I was on the demos too. I don't even remember recording them, but we were staying over at Rob Poor's house because this was how we did it. We were so broke that whenever we would go on tour, we would pack all of our stuff up and put it into storage so that we wouldn't have to pay the rent. And then we would have to stay on somebody's couch for a couple of months until we found a place. And at that point, when we were doing Lolita, or when we were touring Lolita Nation, we got back, and Scott was ready to get started recording the new tracks for the new record. And so Rob had kind of a studio in his house. So Scott just went in there with him, and they wrote the whole thing. You know, the demos sound almost identical in many cases to the final versions of the song.
Wow. Well, let's start off by playing the lead off track. And again, this is Room for One More, Honey. And and Irma wants
Yep.
to listen. All right,
I
let's
have
listen to the
dogs,
track.
Al.
Your vocal is amazing on that song. It sounds
Oh,
so good.
thanks.
The way that the two of you sing together is just great. Did you record those at the same time, or did he record his part and then you recorded your part? Or...
He recorded his part, and he also recorded my part, and I learned my part, but I sang it separately. We taped them at different times.
So you followed his recording after he
Yes.
recorded it?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
basically wrote every single thing. There was one thing in there though that I wrote, which is there's some clinking sounds right after one of the Room for One More. Do you hear the clinking in there?
Yeah.
That was actually all the whole band. We held up wine glasses and clinked them together to get that sound.
That sounds great.
Jeff pointed this out last time, but the opening track on every Game Theory record is just like an epic, and that's certainly
Yeah.
no different.
Yeah, your
That's
performance
one of
on
my
that,
favorites.
Donnette, is amazing. You did a great
Thank you.
performance on that.
Thank you.
Donna, you brought, I wasn't going to bring it up, but you brought up the relationship aspect. Did Scott write, like, did he shut himself off in a room? And how did he write songs? Like,
Yes, he shut himself off in a room.
okay.
And he would do it like you could see he was getting some kind of inspiration and he would just walk away and
Okay.
you know he was gonna go and write something. And he wrote Regenus Ran in my mother's bedroom. And
Oh, wow.
I heard him writing that one. It was at Christmas. So it was the first like snowy Christmas that he'd ever really been in. So yeah, that was, well, there were a couple of other things, Room for One More is a line from that Twilight Zone episode. You guys know that, right?
I did not know that.
Didn't realize
Oh,
Neither. Yeah.
yeah, it's called 22. And it's this woman who's a dancer and she has this dream where she's walking like really nervously to the elevator and then to room 22, and the frightening nurse opens the door and says, "Room for one more, honey." And on top of the door it says morgue, right?
Wow.
And so she
Wow.
screams and runs away. And then like eventually she's getting ready to get on a spoiler alert, get on a plane, and she sees the same woman that was the nurse from the morgue. And sure enough, the woman
Yes.
says, "Room for one more," and she screams and runs away, right? And then the plane crashes. So
I remember that episode now. Wow. I didn't know. That's
Wow.
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I was listening to the lyrics to that song, trying to analyze them, and it's sort of discussing the homogenization of all international cultures into this sort of corporate American thing that keeps rolling out across further and further west or east or wherever. And it used to be that the joke was all of the fruits and nuts roll down the country until they hit the West Coast, and that's where they end up, is in California.
Yeah.
But I think what Scott's saying in this is that actually we're extending our reach way beyond the West, and it's all becoming sort of this uniform lesser thing, and sort of a loss.
Wow. And I thought it was just a pop song. What
Yeah, from Scott Miller, you never know, because a lot of his
Exactly.
topics are pretty heady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of lyrics on that song, so we'll all get in line, and that to me was this sort of jumping on the bandwagon of American commercialism.
So you got a co-writing credit on the song, on that particular song, right? A co-writing
No,
credit?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but now that you're mentioning that you wrote I mean, the credits say that they're all written by Scott Miller.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I got credit for Not Because You Can because of a guitar lick that I wrote. I wrote a lot of my own parts on that one, but for Two Steps, Scott had the studio and he just wrote everything. So I
Yeah.
had
Sorry, I was just going to say, our friend, all of our friend Bradley Scott pointed out to me that some game theory records like Lolita Nation and Real Nighttime are more kind of collaborative, if you will. And then Two Steps and Big Shot Chronicles are more kind of, seems like Scott knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes, Ronnie. And I think that was something that he did intentionally. He wanted to have his own vision every other record, and then he was willing to let it go. If he could have complete control over one, then he felt okay about letting it go a little the next time.
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, Lolita's such a big, sprawling, work of art. Yeah, just next record, streamline. Yeah. So makes sense. It's a reaction to it.
Yeah.
All right, Soraya, how about you play one of your picks?
Okay. So my first pick is Rolling with the Moody Girls. And Donnette, anything you want to share about that song before we hear it?
Well, let's see. I think of this one as kind of a trademark Scott being a grown-up, and that always struck me a little bit funny because of all of us, he was always the most grown-up. But a lot of his song lyrics talk about this sense of being frustrated by having to be the grown-up, and maybe those two things actually go together a little better than what I thought. But then there's also the whole kind of upper crust sensibility thing there with the boarding school and all that. And as I listened to that a few times, and the way I interpreted it when we played it was that there's this American dream sensibility where if you work hard and do all this stuff, then you'll be able to be in the achieve your dreams. But really, that would make you like among the top 10%, and that's really mathematically impossible for everybody to do that. And so that seems to correlate with this notion about love always being fulfilling and stuff. And if you work hard enough at your relationship, then things will work out. But I don't think he believed that either. So, and it was odd this was another Scott complaining about the girl problem, right? And I was the girl, so I never knew what to think of these songs,
Yeah. Yeah. Were you a problem for him?
I was a terrible problem. Actually, I don't know how anybody put up with me.
Were you still together? What at this point? Were you still a couple?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
At this point, Steve Kilby was coming to all of the Lolita Nation. Maybe it was the Two Steps tour that he came to a lot of the shows. So
Okay. So making this record, okay, you were still together.
I think so.
And for our listeners who don't know, Steve was from the church, and then you guys eventually became involved, right? And then we
did
Hex.
Right, we did 2 records, and it was a lot of fun. Steve was much more open to collaboration, which I got a little bit frustrated by toward the end of Game Theory. If I had only just hung in there, probably the next record I would have had more input, but I was a little bit of a prima donna, I guess. So, oops.
That's how most musicians are, right? That's why it's part of the
but I was the worst.
Oh.
Ask anyone.
All right. One more question before we play Soraya's track. And this is based on something that you said about Scott maybe feeling some frustration about having to be the grown-up. Did Scott have siblings?
No, he was an only child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters and 3 stepsons, and my ex-wife has 4 kids after my oldest 3. And my oldest daughter often mentions that it was tough having to be a parent when she had 6 younger siblings. So she felt that she always had to be an adult. And I was just wondering if perhaps Scott was in a similar situation. But
yeah.
I think you were probably the younger siblings, right? The band.
Me, I was the oldest.
As far as him having to be the adult, maybe the band.
Oh,
members.
yeah, no, I was the child.
All right, Soraya. So let's go ahead and play your track.
All right.
So decided once in some abandoned world, hosts inside and guests invited, rolling with the moody girls. Jolly night anticipated, first went home from boarding school, a dash for dad, the rest created as per creation rules. Patterns all draped in
How about that sax solo in there? Is
Yes, I know, huh?
That song is so stinking good. My God. One of the things that always impresses me about a Scott Miller song is there's this harmony, there's this synchronization with everything. It's just everything seems to be perfectly timed, perfectly given, right, to the listener. It's just beautiful to hear. So
Yeah.
I don't know. This song is pretty fantastic.
That was his main interest in writing a song, was creating the most interesting melody that he could come up with. Melody was key to him. So you've really nailed it there, Soraya.
He's a maestro at it, honest.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, and even a song like that, which is pretty straight ahead, still has those funny chords in there in places.
Yes, it does.
Yep, that sounds just perfect. Yeah. So who played the sax on that?
I think that it was somebody that Gary Hobish knew, or it was, I can't remember how it came up, and it was quite controversial at the time, you know. What, a saxophone? No, we can't have a saxophone. But, you know, Scott, I guess, was doing a lot of synthesizer music when that was like really passe. So, you know, he didn't care. And if it sounded good with the saxophone, plus I think a lot of other songs were using a lot of saxophones then. And so it kind of reinforced the lyric there. So I'm going to go along with this thing that everybody's doing, the Moody Girls or whatever it is. And so, you know, okay, fine, we'll have a saxophone. Like everybody else.
Yeah, it wasn't like Junior Walker saxophone. You know what I mean?
No,
It's a scrunky thing. Yeah. No, it sounds perfect.
I don't even know who it was. It was just mentioned. It was like, I know somebody who could play the saxophone. Do you want a saxophone in here? And we said, okay, let's try it.
The credits list him as Dave Barrett. Was his name. So
I don't remember much about that.
Yeah, but like Ronnie said, it's not a traditional sax part. It sounds it sounds like there's some wailing going on, and I can only imagine physically what that might have looked like just from the sound of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Ronnie, what song did you pick for us?
Okay, I could, well, you know, as always, I could pick any song off this record, but I'm gonna go with Leilani here. Not to be confused with the Hoodoo Gurus song of the same title at the same time. But we can talk about it afterwards, but Leilani.
Play for hours on end, but the old feelings won't stay. Try though she may, hates who she was yesterday. So does she think that she loves someone, making the fire drill work twice? Always no dice, don't think that things can stay nice. Sword fights on tables for way too long, ended I guess in a draw. And now Douglas Fairbanks is one off the list, singing loud. Every outing a play for you, or did I really have fun? Clothes on the run, go out and make me someone. Whatever happened to that whole life? Shoot out each chance that I saw. The masks as Clint Eastwood, feel lucky now. Leilani, Leilani, la.
You could waltz the halls away on that song, right?
Yeah, 3-4 times. So weird and brave. You're never gonna have a hit with a 3-4 song, pretty much. But
Yeah, but it's a very sing-songy song, right? I mean, you could totally join in on that chorus.
yes, yeah. And I loved singing that one too live. Yeah, I went to see Game Theory or with the Loud Family, and they played that song or something like it, and I sang right along, just sang my own parts and couldn't hear myself, just like I used to not be able to hear myself. It was just like being there.
Right. I know I'm a sucker for a waltz, and I love the little the part at the end, the epic, the coda. It's right there with Layla for me. I mean,
Oh, wow.
and Scott, gets a lot of attention. I said this on the last one for his fancy chords, but I mean, he's also a master of the guitar line, just a few notes, just so melodic and
Yes.
so just the ending of that song is just I'm getting the
Yeah.
chills. We just heard it. I'm getting the chills thinking about it again. So love
That's actually,
that.
that coda is one of the rare moments when I had some creative input. I sang the descending ooh-ahs on there. So
Mhm.
they're a little low in the mix, but you can hear them. And so
No, and again, you're very prominent on the choruses, and
that was a fun one.
again, you're all over this record, Donnette. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And I'm also
Guy,
noticing. Oh, sorry.
Guy does some nice backing vocals on the verses too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think so.
I'm noticing here in these tracks too, like Scott's singing in a lower register
Yeah, he
for
is.
most of these, right? It's not. I love when he sings high too, but you know what I mean? Like it.
He
Yeah.
had a range. Yeah.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you, Donna, about I'm looking through some of the pictures on the Omnivore, and it's got Mitch on this picture that I'm looking at, got Mitch and Scott. How was it working with Mitch again?
Oh, he was just great. You know, I never did ever get to his studio, but I worked with him when he came out to San Francisco. And he was just so much fun and really, really easy going about his suggestions. And he would just he'd be like listening and I think it needs to blah, blah, whatever it was, amazingly brilliant thing. And just yeah, oh, I think that maybe you need to cook the cake a little longer. It was at that level of, but it would be some amazingly brilliant suggestion. And one of my favorite, I think this was Mitch who did this at the beginning of What the Whole World Wants. You can hear that amp sound.
Mhm.
It's just this, and I always felt really bad about my amp was so loud, but he cranked it right up and it really works. It's like this inhale before the scream almost, and then the song comes along and really hits hard. So that's my classic Mitch. I think he did that. I don't know. I was never there during the mixes, so
Mm.
I think he did that, and I
So
love it.
it was intentional to set the mood. It wasn't something that was just there.
Well, it was there, but he cranked it up and featured it, right? And so
Yeah, that stuff often happens by mistake. It gets recorded, and then you play it back, and you're like, "Oh, that works." And yeah. A
That's
happy accident. Yeah.
when that happens, that is the most rewarding moment of when you're recording.
I love that line about cooking the cake. Is that Mitch's term, Donnette, or is
Oh
that?
no, I was just
That's
casting
you.
my
Okay,
mind
okay.
to
Love
think
it.
of something that it would be really mundane, and yet he would come up with just thing after thing after thing, and it was always brilliant, and he was so very casual about it, like, of course we're going to do that, that's obvious, but it wasn't.
Right. And he had to acclimate himself to these strange studios too, I guess.
Yes.
What not being his place. So
Yeah,
that shows his wizardry right there.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
So the studios that you did record at were CD studios and different Fur studios. Is that correct?
um
They were in San Francisco.
yeah, we recorded all of them in San Francisco,
Okay.
so I don't remember many of the specifics,
Yeah.
but they were nice studios.
Yeah. I was just reading from the credits and wondering if those particular studios had any specific memories attached to them, or was it more of the songs and the sessions that?
Yeah, I think we got through Two Steps pretty quickly because everything was, prepared.
So you didn't have
I
an
don't
issue
remember.
with like early mixes and then getting the final mixes and you being already married to the original mixes? Nothing like that ever
Oh, of
happened?
course I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always happen. Yeah.
But oddly, with the final mixes, I was always higher in the mix than I was in the rough mixes. So I never complained about that.
Yeah. Well, Mitch is a guitar guy, right? So and you being a guitar player, that probably had a lot to do with it. And certainly your voice, but why wouldn't you bring your voice up? Your voice is
Oh,
incredible.
that's nice.
All right, Ronnie, I was thinking you could do another one of your picks so we can kind of be semi-chronological in the album-ish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. My other pick goes right together. You Drive, which again, I think it's the first track I heard. It was on an Enigma sampler cassette before the album came out, and I remember, hearing You Drive, and of course I knew. I knew another Game Theory album was going to be great, but yeah. So that
was the first song you heard from Two Steps, then, Ronnie?
Yeah, it was back in the day, kids. There were advanced cassettes, not advanced CDs, and it was like an Enigma. Enigma would release like 20 records a month. That's probably another subject, Donnette. How you felt about being on a Enigma, and
I loved Enigma.
Okay.
I loved them. I loved everybody there and worked with them, and they were really great.
Culver City, next to the graveyard that had Bela Lugosi. Yep, I visited there, to myself. But
Marianne, she was our one who we worked with mostly.
Nice. But You Drive was on that cassette, so it's the first song I heard, and so that's why, it's special. You Drive. Here we go.
the production on that one to me sounds like it could almost be a Steve Albini because it sounds like such a live feel to it.
Oh yeah.
To me, I don't. And one thing that I thought was really cool about that is there's a little dissonance in the guitar part, especially at the beginning, and you have Scott's wonderful melodies, and it's so catchy, and then you have this little underlying extra dissonance in there that makes the melodies even that much more sweeter. To me, that's how I hear that. But
Yeah, when I listen back to that song now, I notice, and I never noticed this before preparing to talk with you guys, there's not really an obvious chorus there. Have you
Oh yeah,
noticed that?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's mainly the riff
The hook
takes
is that
place.
guitar.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
guitar
That's the
line.
chorus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never even noticed it. I didn't miss it, So that's actually, I think, You Drive might be from an incident, a lot of that. It comes from real things that happened. Like whenever we toured, it was tended to be in the fall a lot, and there was one tour that we were on where it was the World Series was going, and so whenever we showed up in any restaurant or anything with a TV on, the guys in the band would all be really interested in watching the World Series, the baseball. And he was right. They really did act like, who are these people? A lot of the times. And then there was another time, it was in Las Vegas. I was driving the van and I was a little lost, and everybody was telling me where I was supposed to go. And then Scott was like telling me and then I missed a turn. And so I just did my little prima donna thing and got out of the driver's seat and went around the van and got in the back, and I told Scott, "You drive."
oh wow,
Yeah.
wow.
He was shocked. He really didn't think that I was gonna be that much of a baby, but I was, and he immortalized that little fit of pique of mine.
Directions used to be so important.
Oh yeah.
People don't realize this. Yeah, touring, like, oh my God.
Yes. And if you did get lost, then what do? You have to find a phone booth. You have to call somebody.
Call the promoter, try to figure out where you were.
It was crazy.
No.
How did we do that?
I really don't know. I looking back, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but
no.
I really don't know. I also want to mention that song also features prominently that Nan Becker's keyboard played by Shelley. There's that sound.
Yes, Shelley did some really nice things in this record.
Yeah, Shelley's often overlooked. Keyboardists are generally overlooked, right? Unless you're Rick Wakeman. But yeah, Shelley's a huge part of the sound for sure.
Yeah, she was so good.
So speaking of keyboards, my last pick, sorry, I'm leaving yours for last for obvious reasons. But I wanted to jump in here, and I believe on the song that I picked, Throwing the Election, I believe, Donnette, that you may have played the Hammond organ on this one. Is that correct?
Oh, I might have. Yeah. Yeah, I think I did, actually. I forgot about that. Yeah. That was really fun to to be able to play a Hammond organ. That was amazing.
So was that something that was in the studio? You guys didn't bring that to the studio. It was something that was...
I think the studio had it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a real Hammond organ. Boy, this is stuff I've forgotten about, though. And I'm in Canada. I'm stuck in Canada. I couldn't even look at my record to see what the credits said and stuff.
That's right. I remember you.
No politics, Jeff. You really picked this song? Come on.
I kind of thought that it was appropriate this year. It's not stealing the election, but
kind of, yeah.
I think that this one came from Scott was a big Gary Hart supporter. Did you know that? Yeah.
No.
I didn't know that, but yeah.
Yeah, he was very, very supportive of Gary Hart, and he was so upset when Gary Hart pulled that kind of shenanigans with what seemed like self-sabotage, and this was something that Scott really hated, was when people did that kind of self-sabotage. It was unnecessary. and it really betrayed. He felt a sense of betrayal from that. So it was. I think that may have inspired it. And of course, you know, Scott always turns it into more than just that. But I think that's where it started.
And your Hammond organ part is prominent, very prominent, as well as your singing on the song too, as well.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
All right, well, let's play it. So this is Throwing the Election.
There's a line on the 19th floor tonight. They don't know there won't even be a fight, but they'll find out I'm tired of all the things I've called my own. When they go to the final mats alone, don't even waste the man hours on us. We are finding a solution. Call the boys in from the fighting fronts. We have lost the revolution. None of the soaring flight we dreamed is any closer to perfection. And all I want is one to fold my arms around. We are throwing the election. There's a light on in Joni's room tonight, and she won't sleep till summer's going right. And she thought she saw something that would lead her to believe I'm the kind who'll accept the strokes and leave. Make me an offer, I don't waste them now. We have no more fixed intentions. Give all the faithful long-deserved rest. We've abandoned our dissensions. You could be one of someone's hundreds who'll be chosen for affection. And all I want is one to fold my arms around. We are throwing the election. I've got a feeling it's all rigged. I've got a feeling it ended a long time ago. Nobody tells me. I've got a feeling it's over now. I've got a feeling it's over now. I've got a feeling the votes are written. I got none. And all I want is one.
Yeah, I think that's got one of the most heartbreaking lines of any song I've ever heard, that the votes are in and I've got none and all I want is one. That just tears me up every time.
Scott has a way of doing those, of writing those kind of things, the right, where it's very heartfelt.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering, because some of the songs are very complicated, and Ronnie mentioned some of the chords that Scott used. I try to figure them out when I get out my Gretchen. I can't figure out what chords. They're not standard bar chords or the folk chords that I use. I was wondering if that translated into his personality or his life. Is that complication in the way that he writes sometimes with some of the arrangements and some of the chords, does that represent at all like his personality?
I think that in his normal interactions with people, he was very straightforward and really personable and fun. And the closest he got to being complex was when he would take off and start writing, or later on coding. He got this was way back in the mid 80s. He got a link to his work. He was doing coding for an operating system called Lisp. And once that thing was hooked up, I never saw him again, pretty much, you know.
Wow.
He loved coding, and, you know, it was a lot like writing, but he could be very reclusive. I'd say that was the closest to being complex that he got.
Okay. Interesting. So that
Yeah.
that side of him came out more in his songs. So
Yeah, his songs are very different. And then also on that song, Throwing the Election, I did not play the initial intro organ. I still don't know who that was, but I think it was Scott.
that very loud part. It sounds very classic rock. I can almost hear like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Steve Perry coming in after
John Lord. It's very Deep Purple. Yeah.
yeah. But the rest of the part with the,
I think so, yeah.
must have been.
I don't remember why, you know, Scott could have played that too, but I played it. I remember playing it.
Oh,
Just
and
take the credit on the intro too, Donnette. It's okay.
Okay, that was me.
and I will say at the ending part, the vocals are so sweet.
Oh, thank you.
The last few bars of the song just sound so sweet. It's just a wonderful way. You have that very aggressive organ part at the beginning, and at the end, it's so sweet.
Yeah, I always try to figure out what he's trying to do when he does stuff like that. You know, that it's this sort of letting go, a song about letting go, and I think that the sonic landscape kind of captures that a little bit.
He's definitely good at that, right? So on the Omnivore release, there's some photos on here, and I love your expressions on some of these. I wouldn't want to like meet you in a dark alleyway because some of these are like, but the Omnivore release, Ronnie and I have talked about this in Soraya. We were so happy that Omnivore decided to reissue some of these, and this kind of leads into one of Soraya's picks because Soraya decided to go outside of the old Enigma version, right?
Right.
And you
So
went with
what I picked was a bonus track, and it's a song that blew me out of my shoes when I heard it, and it's The Waist and the Knees.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites on.
Oh my
God,
this song is so good, and the live version. I mean, I'm at a loss for words. I can't wait to talk about it once it's over. The Waist and the Knees.
moves by the illicit lies. Gotta be smart when time's come. You gotta be smart while acting dumb. And I think you're learning, don't sleep right. Sleep until the morning Sicko, hang on, Snoop John. Ugliest trip I've ever been on. Well, follow those streets, we're gonna have it. Small, literal, well within reach. Not a secret fantasy dreamed of. No excuse for Joey, we're losers, we know. Twin on our hair and clothes. And we see the rings of smoke through the trees. We're how all the words go. All you stand for all seasons. We know I couldn't face this heaven alone. Special friend shall not be held liable for money, so the retired performers guild or the apparent rat wiring recording archive society, and shall not be lost due to theft, displacement, impulse buying, court sportsmanship, birth of multi-headed, ritual shall be remembered by the other side. No one wins by being unreasonable. And over the sea, no place nothing I know to change. You could just like
tell me that wasn't a blast to play live.
Oh, yes, it sure was. And you know what? Initially, Scott didn't want to play that live. I talked him into it. It wasn't real hard, but he said that he didn't want to do that one because how would we do all of the tape looped voices that he did in the middle, right? And I said, well, we can all kind of blab about, tell us what it was that you said there, and we'll all just pitch in. And so all of us got a chance to be, talking basically at the same time, and it was so much fun.
It's
That
kind of
song was,
punk rock psychedelic,
uh-huh.
both punk psychedelic.
Shelley was
Yep.
saying that she went on the second tour just to play that song live. So, and I agree with her.
That's right. So the original version is from Lolita Nation, right?
Right.
But thankfully, Omnivore put some bonus tracks on some of these reissues, and there we go.
Yeah.
Soraya, I'm glad you picked that song because the thing that stood out to me, and I hate to curse on this podcast
Do
because
it.
Jeff and Soraya are such pure souls, but Gil fucking Ray.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you.
does he not?
Come on,
Thank
come
you.
on. I mean, that's all I mean, Gil. I meant to say this on you drive too. That song starts with that classic Gil Ray drum roll. But yeah, Gil Ray on that. Oh my God.
I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, it's incredible. I want to ask you this too. Like every band or every good band kind of has a member that maybe is not the creative person, but is kind of the heart and soul of the band.
That would have been Gil.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I feel like I was going to ask, was that Gil? Because it seems like
Yeah,
it was.
Gil. It was
Yeah.
Gil. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
everything about that song. All the layers to it. I mean, Donnette, I can't even imagine how that must have been on stage and all those guitar parts. I mean,
It was fun.
Mm.
Yeah. Scott was such a consummate guitar player too. It was, I hardly had to do anything because he could do everything, I mean, he made us all look so good. It was just really wonderful.
I love
Haven't seen you live, Donnette. Scott, I know on the Lolita tour he wore that shirt with the G.
Yeah.
Now, did he wash it every night? Like, how did that work? Obviously, he only had one, right? Like,
I think he had one. Yeah, he would rinse it out. Yeah, but he made that shirt. He silk screened it himself.
wow.
I asked him. It was the one with the E sideways, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a coding thing, and it means something, and I can't remember what it was. I think he told me.
Oh.
Wow. What's impressive to have to upkeep the same shirt for an entire tour is not an easy thing to do. So.
So did you enjoy touring? I'm glad you mentioned touring, Ronnie. Did you enjoy touring with the band?
Yeah, I did. I really did. And we were originally, I guess there was not a tour planned for Big Shot Chronicles, so I went ahead and booked it. And, there was like, I called people up and I didn't know anything about where to play in all of these cities. And so, it was a fun tour, but I was also heard about it whenever anything didn't go right, so. But
Well, Donna, I wanted to thank you for coming on. We've already had you for long enough. Did you have any last thoughts about Two Steps before we?
I should tell you that Shelley wants to point out that she did not have anything really to do with the cover art, although she's credited for it. And she thinks that maybe the Stonehenge, those were made out of styrofoam that Scott carved, and then she did some painting on some of it. But she thinks that maybe the 5 represent the 5 members of the band, the 5 exclamation point Stonehenge things. But we don't know. We have no idea what he was going for with that.
That's so funny of her to want to clarify that.
Yeah.
30 years later.
And the G got a little bit smaller on this one, right? Because the G seemed to grow as the years went along, but on this one, not so big.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
That means something too, no doubt, right?
Probably.
Well, I'm glad we talked about this record. I consider this the most underrated Game Theory record. Well, Blaze of Glory is underrated as well, but I consider this the most underrated record. I mean, it really is solid, and it's wonderful. It's right up there with all the rest. So
And it's got your stamp all
Thank
over
you.
it on it.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
want to give it a little love. So
Thank you, Ronnie, for suggesting it. And thank you, Jeff and Soraya, for having me. And it was really fun.
You're amazing.
Yes.
Thank
yeah,
you.
and thanks for having me, you guys. Again, thanks for letting me crash the podcast.
Anytime.
And now's the part where they talk about us, Donnette. So
Oh, well, I hope they're kind to us, but
always so
course.
stressful. Yeah.
we'll see it later.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
a
again,
million.
Donnette.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Ronnie.
Bye.
Thank
Yep,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Soraya,
Donnette Thayer. Donnette Thayer.
bad ass. That's all
Thank you for saying it.
Oh,
Wow. What a great musician, first of all.
absolutely.
And I loved all the details that she gave us about the record and about Scott Miller.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about it before, and I think Ronnie really summarized it really well. Scott Miller was a great songwriter, but then Donnette added in how it seemed like when he was writing, you know, when she said, you know, he would kind of just go off, write, and then come back. It seems like everything just kind of played out in his head, you know, and then his job is just to bring it and say, okay, you do this, you do that, you know, or, you know, and then begin that kind of dialogue. And then think about having to replicate that with so many different lineups. I mean, you're in a band. You've been in different bands. It's hard to do to
Yeah.
create that sort of synergy and chemistry when it's a completely new group and still put out an album that's got legs, you know, and not lose any traction.
Yeah.
And when Donnette said this was the first, Two Steps is the first Game Theory album that has this, that with a consistent lineup. It's the second album with the same lineup. I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Her voice on this album, to me, makes this album. I mean, there's so many elements, not just that. I don't want to say just that, but her voice on this particular album, and especially a couple of those tracks, like "Room for One More Honey," which I thought was interesting to hear that story about the Twilight Zone connection.
Yeah.
But
I had no idea about that.
I didn't know about that.
story.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go watch 22. That episode. But
Room for one more, honey.
right. Yeah, I'm out of here. So, but the vocals are just incredible, and it was really interesting to hear the way that it was put together in the studio, and
Yeah.
and Mitch, what Mitch added to it, and man, it is a really great record, and I'm so glad that Ronnie suggested this. Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
One thing I wanted to go back to was something Donnette said. Please forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Michael Corcio alluded to it when we talked to him regarding game theory. The influence of pet sounds that on Scott Miller. And she mentioned it with respect to Room for One More Honey. And, you know, when she said it, it's like the light bulb went off, right? You have these people that have this creative vision, and they're like so creative for their time, right? And it's almost like they have so much to communicate that that music becomes the only vehicle. And so it's just, I don't know. my mind started going off in crazy places at that point, but I said, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I would have never thought about that until she brought it up, but then when she brought it up, it makes perfect sense. But
It fits.
I wouldn't have come to that on my own.
Now, I wouldn't say that Scott Miller went to the same extent that Brian Wilson did. I mean, Brian Wilson, that's a completely separate chapter. But the fact that here's Scott Miller with, I can already envision, like, have this thing and I want to get it out. And okay, now help me make this vision come to life. And that to me was, I don't know, it was just something that was like, boom, okay. Now I can see it a little differently. I can see him and his work a little differently. And that's like Leilani too.
Yeah.
I've heard Leilani a few times, but now listening to it one more time and then having Donnette there and her adding, some details about the song is like, song is really beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and Ronnie pointed out that Scott's singing in a lower register, so there's a lot of things going on here. But yeah.
I'm so glad we had her on.
I just keep looking over my notes and I'm like, okay, what else do I want to say?
Yeah, I was watching you jot down.
Oh my God. I just couldn't stop. But, and there's a lot behind Scott Miller's writing of a lot of these songs. Like I never, ever, ever would have thought Scott Miller was a Gary Hart supporter.
Yeah.
And then you listen to Throwing the Election, and one of the things that kind of struck me this time was you would hear this very sweet melody and then this kind of aggressive throwing the election, like his voice was different to me this time. I don't know. Maybe because she added that detail and I was hearing things. Maybe I was projecting. I don't know. But, and then for her to say it's a song about letting go. Very appropriate pick, Jeff.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we just blew it all to bits with the waist and the knees.
Yeah.
It's like,
No.
yeah, loud song, guitars.
Yeah.
We want it all. And Gil Ray. Ronnie is right. Gil Ray.
Yes. Yeah.
Man. And super nice guy too.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is another good episode, I think.
Man, I love it already.
Yeah.
I am so grateful and thankful that Donnette Thayer agreed to be on the show.
Absolutely.
And Jeff, I'm already claiming it as my band name, Greens and Grits. Greens and Grits. Gente agarubiar.
Groove on, Paisley people.
Greens and Grits.